There is a woman in Bird in Hand, Pennsylvania, who turned 74 last September. She has no skincare shelf, no serum collection lined up on a bathroom counter, no subscription box arriving on the first of every month filled with peptide creams and brightening mists and collagen-boosting complexes that promise everything on the label and quietly deliver very little inside the jar. What she has is a routine she learned from her mother, who learned it from hers, passed down through 3 generations of plain women who rose before the sun and worked outdoors in every season, and somehow, against everything the modern beauty industry insists must happen to a woman's skin after 60, look a decade and a half younger than their age, with a consistency that is not accidental and not genetic and not luck. A home health aide who visited her household last spring had spent 11 years working with elderly patients across Lancaster County. She had seen thousands of women in their 70s. She knew what that decade typically looked like on skin. She walked into that farmhouse kitchen and stopped moving. She finished her visit and drove back to her office and sat in the parking lot for a few minutes, thinking about what she had just seen. She later described it to a colleague as the kind of skin you associate with a woman in her mid-50s who has taken exceptional care of herself. Not smooth in the way that suggests anything has been done to it. Smooth in the way that suggests nothing has been done to it wrong for 50 years running. That distinction is the whole conversation. And it is the one the beauty industry has spent an extraordinary amount of money and effort making sure never becomes the headline. The morning routine practiced in old-order Amish households across Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and parts of Holmes County, Ohio, is not a secret in the communities where it lives. It is simply breakfast. It is simply Tuesday. These women do not think of themselves as doing anything notable because they are not deviating from anything. They never started doing what the rest of the country started doing. They kept going the direction they were already pointed and arrived 70 years later with skin that stops home health aides in their tracks and makes visiting relatives ask uncomfortable questions about what they have been spending their own money on. What follows is a documented pattern, not a product, not a protocol with a branded name. A pattern of morning behaviors, ingredients, and habits that researchers, rural physicians, and a small number of dermatologists who have worked in plain communities have been observing and, in some cases, quietly writing about for years. The reason it has not reached mainstream conversation is not complicated. There is no margin in it. Nothing here can be patented. Nothing here supports a retail ecosystem. And an industry generating over $90 billion annually in the United States alone does not have a structural incentive to point women toward a clay bowl and a bar of tallow soap, and tell them that the women who never stopped using both look the way they look for exactly that reason. The morning ritual begins with water. Not a cleanser, not a foaming gel with a fragrance that smells expensive, and a pH that quietly strips the skin's acid mantle every single morning for 30 years. Water. Specifically, cool water, sometimes cold, splashed across the face and neck in repeated passes with clean hands. The temperature matters. Cool water in the morning does the opposite of what warm water does at night. Where warmth opens and loosens, coolness tightens and stimulates. The capillaries beneath the skin's surface respond to the temperature shift by briefly contracting and then dilating, a microcirculation event that brings fresh blood to the surface tissue and gives skin that particular quality of aliveness that no highlighter has ever convincingly replicated. Amish women have been doing this every morning because that is what you do when your water comes from a well and your house is not always warm before the fire is stoked. The cold water was not a choice they made for their skin. It was simply the water available. But the effect accumulated over decades in a way that distinguishes their skin's surface quality from women who have washed their faces every morning of their lives with a warm, fragrant, foaming cleanser formulated to feel luxurious and marketed as essential. The acid mantle is the thin, slightly acidic film that sits on the surface of healthy skin, made up of sebum, sweat, and the natural byproducts of the skin's own bacterial environment. Its pH sits between 4.5 and 5.5. Most conventional facial cleansers, particularly foaming ones, have a pH between 6 and 8. Every morning wash with an alkaline cleanser disturbs that film. The skin works to restore it. In a young woman, this restoration is fast and complete. In a woman over 50, it is slower and increasingly incomplete. And the cumulative result of 30 years of daily disruption is a barrier that is perpetually slightly compromised, perpetually slightly more vulnerable to moisture loss, inflammation, and the kind of surface dryness that settles into the fine lines around the eyes and mouth and makes them look deeper than they structurally are. Amish women did not know the phrase acid mantle. They did not know their pH. They just did not wash their faces with soap every morning because plain soap was for hands and bodies and was not put on the face out of habit and instruction passed down from women who noticed, across generations, that faces treated gently lasted better than faces scrubbed hard. The knowledge was observational. The biology behind it was documented decades later. The conclusion was identical. After the cool water comes the application that sits at the center of this entire conversation, and the one that the modern industry most specifically and most successfully buried under 40 years of misdirection. Raw apple cider vinegar diluted in water, applied to the face and neck with a clean cloth as a morning toner. The ratio used in most households is roughly 1 part vinegar to 6 or 8 parts cool water, diluted enough that there is no sting, no redness, no sensation beyond a faint coolness and a smell that dissipates in seconds. This is not a trend. It is not something that appeared in a wellness magazine in 2019 and spread through social media. It is a practice that Amish women in Lancaster County have been doing every morning for longer than anyone in those communities can remember. And the reason it works is now documented in dermatological literature with a clarity that should embarrass the industry that spent decades selling women toners at $40 an ounce containing alcohol, synthetic fragrance, and witch hazel, while the actual pH correcting, barrier supporting, mildly antimicrobial solution sat in a glass jar in every farmhouse pantry for under $2 a month. Apple cider vinegar's pH sits between 2.5 and 3.5 in its undiluted form. Diluted at the ratio these women use, it lands right at the skin's natural range, restoring the acid mantle that the morning water rinse barely touched to begin with. The acetic acid in it has documented mild antimicrobial properties, meaning it keeps the skin's surface bacteria in the balanced state that healthy skin requires without stripping the beneficial microbiome the way alcohol-based toners do. The alpha-hydroxy acids present in raw apple cider vinegar, primarily malic acid, provide a level of very gentle surface exfoliation that over time and with consistent use keeps the skin's texture refined without ever crossing into the inflammation and barrier disruption that aggressive chemical exfoliants cause when overused, which in the modern skincare market, they almost always are. The word raw matters here. Filtered, pasteurized apple cider vinegar has had its microbial content and much of its acid complexity removed. The raw variety, containing what is called the mother, the cloudy strand of beneficial bacteria and enzymes visible at the bottom of an unfiltered bottle, carries the full profile of compounds that make this application effective. Amish households that make their own vinegar from orchard apples are working with a product of considerably higher complexity than anything sold in a standard grocery store. The women who buy it, rather than make it, buy it raw. They have always bought it raw because that is the kind that was always in the pantry, and the other kind is the kind that came later and does not smell or behave the same way. The third element of the morning routine is the one that requires the most context to understand properly, because it sounds, on its surface, like something a person in 1850 would do, and not something that a 74-year-old woman with remarkable skin is doing every morning in 2025. Rendered tallow or cold-pressed plant oil, applied in a quantity so small it barely registers, is pressed gently into the skin of the face, neck, and that consistently overlooked zone just below the jaw and along the upper chest, while the skin is still slightly damp from the water rinse and the vinegar application. Damp skin absorbs an occlusive fat differently than dry skin. The moisture already present in the surface cells is sealed in by the lipid layer, rather than the lipid layer sitting on top of dehydrated tissue, trying to do a job it cannot fully accomplish. This sequence, water first, acid correction second, lipid seal third, mirrors the exact layering logic that high-end skincare brands now charge significant money to explain in their educational content, while selling you 3 separate products to execute it, when the women in Intercourse and Strasbourg and Sugar Creek have been doing it with 2 ingredients and cold well water every morning before the rest of the household wakes up. There is a 71-year-old woman in Strasbourg who has 7 grandchildren and has spent the last 50 years gardening, canning, and working in direct sun for 4 to 6 hours on most summer days. Sun exposure at that level and duration over that many years is the single most significant external driver of visible skin aging that dermatologists identify. By every conventional prediction, her skin should show the cumulative story of 5 decades of outdoor work. Her face tells a different story, and the story it tells begins every morning with cool water, diluted vinegar, and a fingertip of fat that costs less than a cup of coffee. The industry did not miss this. It looked directly at it and looked away because what it saw had no place in a business model built on recurring purchases, escalating regimens, and the manufactured insecurity of women who were told, consistently and loudly, that aging was a problem requiring increasingly expensive solutions. The $2 morning routine was not an oversight. It was a threat. And the most effective way to neutralize a threat that cannot be discredited on the science is to drown it in noise, to fill every magazine page and every algorithm and every dermatologist's waiting room with something newer, something patentable, something that requires you to come back next month for more. The morning routine does not end with the vinegar and the fat. There are 2 more elements, and they are the ones most easily overlooked because they do not involve any ingredient at all. The 4th element is sequence and stillness. After the tallow or oil is pressed into damp skin, Amish women do not immediately cover their faces with anything. No powder, no foundation, no layer of product applied on top of a layer that is not finished absorbing. The skin is left alone for the time it takes to dress, to start the fire, to put the kettle on. Somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes of simple, uninterrupted absorption. Modern routines stack product on product in rapid succession because the market requires you to use everything you purchased. Skin that is allowed to fully receive one thing before being asked to receive another behaves fundamentally differently over decades. The fifth element is the one that costs the most to say plainly in a culture that sells busyness as a virtue. Sleep. Consistent, early, uninterrupted sleep that honors the skin's own repair window rather than fighting it. Every Amish household in these communities is dark and quiet before 10 in the evening, not as discipline, as life. The circadian repair cycle that dermatologists now document carefully is the same window plane women have been sleeping inside of for 200 years without knowing its clinical name. The late 1970s internal industry conversation I mentioned at the end of part 1 is real and documented. A trade association report identified single-ingredient animal fats as the primary threat to market growth in the emerging premium skincare segment. The recommendation was not to disprove them, it was to outsell them. They succeeded for 50 years. They are still succeeding until women stop letting them. If your mother or grandmother had a morning ritual with no brand name attached to it, leave it in the comments. That knowledge belongs to everyone.